All In Sports Network. We love sports.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Ben Peck here on the All In YouTube channel. The All In Sports Network is part of the Rogue Sports Media Network. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We've seen a lot of growth the last week, and we thank you for it. But a lot of people watching it that aren't subscribed. We've got like double the view counts than our subscribers on some of these. So if you could, it helps a ton, and we appreciate you for it. All right, let's get into it. Obviously, kind of Friday, bye week Friday. We're kind of looking at high school football because we ain't got nothing to look forward to Saturday for Texas A&M, at least. We just get to sit back and enjoy. I've got my New Deal Lions shirt. Shout out to those guys who hooked me up with this back in the day out in West Texas. But the topic for today, we're going to discuss Marcel Reed's maturity and where the quarterback room is as we look ahead to the future. We talked about it with Andrew Monaco. If you haven't already watched our discussion with the great voice of the Aggies, be sure to do that. Great discussion. We got into a number of different topics, Mike Elko, the offense, the defense, the culture, all those things. And speaking of, that's kind of the main thrust of this with Marcel Reed is how he is emblematic of hopefully a culture that Mike Elko is building at Texas A&M. Not just Marcel Reed, but Connor Weigman as well. If you haven't seen this excerpt kind of clipped from the Pulse this past week, clipped by Carter Carls, but of course the Pulse 12th Man Foundation, 12th Man Production, they put this together. Great show, as you guys all know. You're Aggies on the internet. You don't know about the Pulse. What are we doing? But this was after the game against Mizzou, an acknowledgement from Mike Elko about the performance from Connor Weigman, the maturity, the leadership, but also all those things from Marcel Reed, especially impressive when you consider just a redshirt freshman still.
A couple things I want to point out, right? First of all, our quarterback, Connor Weigman. Hell yeah! Now, I'm going to say this too. Marcel Reed, where you at? Yes, sir. Because here's culture, right? Here's culture. Culture is coming in when your name's called, leading us to 3-0, making it an extremely difficult decision, right? Deciding to go back with our starter, him not flinching, him being an unbelievable energy source, him being prepared if we needed him today, and him just being a great part of this program so that if it ever goes back to him, I know he'll be ready. Stay
If you're looking for me this weekend, I'll be running through brick walls listening to Mike Elko on the Pulse. I mean, the way those two guys have handled it, along with the coaches, obviously, needless to say, just kind of a model example of how you want every room in your thing, in your team to work. No egos. I wouldn't even say that. Like, there's healthy egos. Like, you have to have confidence in yourself. So in that sense, but there's no animosity. There's an understanding of what the common goal, the common objective is. There's, of course, being prepared and both guys not checking out or getting discouraged. You know, Connor Weigman not doing that when Marcel Reed's going on his little run and not getting all pouty faced and you know, checked out, because I promise you, if he was checked out and frustrated with some of the stuff he was hearing, not just the personal shots at him that Mike Elko kind of defended him from, but the, hey, like, why even go back? Marcel Reed, Connor, who? There's a lot of talk from that from the national people. I think people are quick to forget how quickly some national media folks were to just write off Connor Weigman after, I'm sorry, was it 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, something like that in his first 8 games? For Connor to keep his head down, stay focused, be ready to go, and not need the extra week ahead of Mississippi State to be able to go at home against a top 10 team and perform like he did speaks volumes of his maturity. In my opinion, it's, you know, and we were talking about this with Andrew Monaco. Again, if you haven't already watched that discussion, something I meant to interject, which, you know, he made the point that Connor Weigman was practicing before, not just leading up to the Mizzou game, but even the weeks in between. I guess my thing would have been in terms of the whole letting him wait until the bye week is if you say, hey, instead of, because Andrew talked about this, he talked about how it almost felt like camp. You'd have like, Connor going with the ones and Marcel going with the ones and kind of back and forth. But as we know, in normal situations in the regular season, a lot of teams, it's pretty, I'm not going to say exclusive, but there's a lot of emphasis on just like, hey, this is the guy. He's going to get the lion's share of the reps, and then the backups will get a few in where they can. I didn't know if they'd want to give Marcel Reed that type of week to say, even if Connor's practicing and he's able to get some reps, to say, hey, we're going to put – since Connor's still not 100% sure thing until we get to Saturday, like we're going to just go ahead and put all our eggs in the basket of Marcel Reed in case we have to go there. And for those guys to battle back and forth, for Connor to battle back and forth like he did, and for Marcel to not get upset about that, I think it speaks good of him. Marcel talked about not wanting to transfer or not having any sort of impulse to transfer, given that he was coming back to a team that had Connor, that had Jalen Henderson, that had, I guess those two guys, Miles O'Neal. But, I mean, you could make the argument because the way it went with Max Johnson was Connor, Max Johnson, Jalen Henderson, then Marcel, and now you're bringing in Miles O'Neal. Like, there's a world that exists. It's not the one we live in, but there's a world where you're coming in thinking, okay, I'm already behind Jalen Henderson and Connor Weigman, and now I might even have to battle out Miles O'Neal, like to be the third string. Do I really want to go through all that instead of maybe just go to a place where it's a safe bet that I can, if not be the starter, be the clear number two? And he didn't do that. And A&M clearly needed him, and as Mike Elko just said there. This is also wanted to get to this. This was Mike Elko when asked by Owen Buchanan of Texas A&M how Marcel, you'll hear the question, but how he took the news.
How did Marcel take the news?
Like a competitor. I think he's a great kid. He wants to be our starting quarterback. He's wanted to be our starting quarterback since the day he stepped on campus. That's what makes him great. But he also wants to win, and he wants to be a great Aggie, and he wants to be a great teammate. And so he'll continue to prepare, and he'll continue to put himself in position to be ready to go if his number's needed and called.
So, I mean, I think that's the thing that's the most reassuring is not just where he is mentally, but unfortunately, we've seen a habit of Texas A&M needing multiple quarterbacks to get through a season. Hopefully, offensive line is shored up to the point where that won't be an issue. But, like, even if with a good offensive line, crazy stuff can happen, right? So I think you feel probably about as good as you ever have if you ever needed to go to your number two quarterback to get you through, a tough time, a series, a play, a game, whatever. And you feel really good going into next year and potentially the year after. If Connor Weigman is not back next year, if he decides to go into the NFL draft, Marcel Reed, I think, has set himself up to be, either the guy in College Station, or if Connor Weigman decides to come back and Marcel Reed says, you know what, I'm going into my third year. I think I put enough on tape to have a starting opportunity, and no animosity, but I want to take that and run with it. I don't think anyone would fault him for that. I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't fault him for staying either. I think that's a personal decision, but one that would be justified either way. But assuming he stays in College Station, given the way he kind of talked about not being in any rush or hurry to go into the transfer portal or explore those options, I think you got to feel really good about the future, the health of that position moving forward. So hats off to Connor Weigman, Marcel Reed, Mike Elko, Colin Klein, the way they handled that situation. And be really excited to see the second half of the season. Obviously, start off with Mississippi State. I was about to say McNeese State. We already did that one. Started off with Mississippi State coming up next week. I would feel pretty good about it. I know they have to treat it seriously, and you do. Like, anything can happen. We saw last week what happened with all this stuff, not just Vanderbilt. I don't think the Vanderbilt win over Alabama, if you were paying attention, was as much of an upset as the names would suggest. I mean, even I'm saying that to even the pretty in-depth college football fan who knows Vanderbilt is better this year than they have been. And that's not totally – I'm not talking about the casuals. I'm saying even those college football fans who would grant you, yeah, Vanderbilt's better this year, I think they were even shocked by more than I think they should have been. I probably would have had Alabama like an 18.5-point favorite, something along those lines. Not that they asked me, but just in terms of how often those upsets tend to come through, that's kind of where I had in my mind, because anything can happen on the road, especially on the road in the SEC. You still have NFL talent on that roster, maybe not this draft class, but along the lines 3-4 years out, you've probably got some pros on there, and you're in their building. So we'll see what happens, but really excited about not just the present, but the future of that quarterback group. And by the way, like, shout out Jalen Henderson and Miles O'Neill. I think those guys, given what you would ask of them right now, and we saw what Jalen Henderson did, no doubt in my mind that if he had to be called upon, he would not set you back a ton. Miles O'Neill, the jury's still out. We haven't seen him in game action, but from everything we heard leading up, he sounds, just as promising as anyone else. So feel good about. And then you got Easton Longstreet coming in next year, the 5-star, as a true freshman next year. So a position of strength for Texas A&M. They're in a position of strength, 5-1, 3-0 in the SEC, the only 3-0 team in the SEC. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Again, we're seeing a lot of growth. We're putting a little distance between us and the fellas from Austin. So help us continue to do that. Help us continue to make this the best channel on the network, the best channel that we can. I think it's important, and it's really nice for me personally to have an outlet to discuss Texas A&M sports where we are independent. We're not affiliated at all with the university. We don't have any sort of even side marketing deals, licensing. In that sense, we are pretty unique. And in terms of what we talk about, there's some sites that do a lot of recruiting and this and that. And I'm not putting anyone down. Everyone does a great job at their role within the A&M media ecosphere. But I think this channel, I'm hoping, can kind of provide something different that is not really touched upon, where, again, we actually go down to the high school level to not just do football recruiting, but other sports recruiting. We talk about other sports. We get feature stories that we provide to you here, high-end video content, in addition to, sort of a more traditional podcast guest sort of format. I want to do it all. And again, really all the sports as well. Like the same amount of in-depth knowledge on all these things. Just as an aside, A&M soccer, tough loss 2-0 against Vanderbilt last night. We're not going to do a whole thing on that. We'll kind of do a weekly thing on them next week. But I think all these athletes on campus deserve all the love and support, and they work just as hard as any other team on campus. So we're going to try to pay it forward and give them that respect. And, obviously we still do talk a lot about football and basketball and baseball. It's not going anywhere, softball, but we're going to do it all the way. But the way you can help us do that is by subscribing, sharing the show, telling people about it, letting us know what you like, letting us know what your thoughts about whatever we're talking about on the day. Get the conversation started in the comments and keep it going. Let's keep this momentum going. I'm going to try to put out a goal here. I would love to have, by the end of football season, we started this the Wednesday before Notre Dame. What if we had 1,200 subscribers from the 12th man, 1.2K by the end of football season? We're at a little over 400 right now. I think we can do it, but we got to get that momentum. So if you could help us out with that venture and subscribe. Again, I'm Ben Peck. All In Aggies will be off Saturday, Sunday, as the football team will, but we'll come back Monday with some fresh content. And until then, we will see you there.
All In Sports Network. We love sports.